Yep.
Yo.
Okay, so Bill Maher, I understand what you're going to say because it's almost like he comes right to making sense, and then he's like, "But you still have to vote for Joe Biden." You know what I mean? He'll like make all this sense. Like he's like, everything is so messed up, and how can this be true? And how this, and this? But you have to vote for Joe, right? Right?
Yeah, just to bring everybody up to speed, we were talking about Bill Maher because he was on Joe Rogan the other day and how he's kind of says some really smart things and then he says some really dumb stuff at the same time,
Yeah,
like you
I've
kind of
listened
just
to him
said.
for a while. Well, I
Well,
don't listen to him, but I've heard him say things that I agree with over the years, and it's more and more often. Yeah, so I agree with you.
I used to watch his show on HBO, and
It's still on HBO.
is it? Well,
Yeah,
I now I see him because he does his podcast, so he
yeah,
does
yeah.
that
Well, he has
privately,
his own podcast too.
right? And
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with a lot of what he says. You know, most of it is ethics, morals. You know, just people,
Hmm.
human being stuff. You know, but so I was watching. I'm only about halfway through the interview with Joe, and it's interesting. So he'll come out and say something, right, that like makes total sense that I agree with, and then he'll say something else. Like he was saying, I forgot specifically what he said, but he was talking about, oh well, the UN says, oh well, the CDC says. That's cool,
Yeah.
but I don't trust anything that the UN says or the CDC. So again, he'll say something really smart, and then he'll say like, "Oh, but the CDC suggests that we." Come on, man, Bill, are you really still buying that crap? Like after everything that just happened over the last few years, I don't give a fuck what the CDC has to say. Quite frankly,
One of my favorite George Carlin clips of all time is on the Bill Maher show. The one when he says, "You don't need a formal conspiracy when like interests combine." He's like, "These people are in the same country clubs. They went to the same colleges. They know each other. They know what's good for them."
yeah,
You know
I
what I mean?
saw that. Yeah,
It's a
George
big fucking
Carlin
club.
has so
Yeah.
many good clips.
He's so
Um,
smart, man. He
so
was so right.
smart, so way ahead of everybody. I mean, he was
Yeah.
saying this stuff back in what, the 70s?
Policies that were created here in California, not as a result of a conspiracy, but
you
because...
don't need a formal conspiracy
Right.
when interests converge. These people went to the same universities and
please.
fraternities. They're on the
It's
same
very
boards
simple.
of directors. They're on the same country clubs. They have like interests. They
Yes.
don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them,
It's a
and they're getting it. And there
Is
used
there-
to be
this-
7 oil companies. There are now 3. It will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties. There are a handful of insurance companies. There are about 6 or 7 information things. But if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice.
Right.
You don't get the real important choice. There's no
Exactly.
freedom of choice.
That's a great point.
Pretty amazing.
Yo, recognize this shirt?
Oh yeah, is that Trading Places?
Yeah.
Nice. I was just
Yeah.
watching that the other day. I love that movie.
Great movie.
Yeah, it's great. The ending's the best. Anybody who hasn't seen it, Trading Places.
Happy New Year!
So yeah, what do you want to talk
Yes,
about?
because we just recorded yesterday, because I know you can't be around for a minute. So I just saw Sagar from Breaking Points had just did an update on the report that Biden just did a live interview, the first one since the debate.
I heard about it.
And he said he's definitely running. He's still kind of, he was all like, he said, I was tired. And he said, I had a cold, like
I
I thought
heard, yeah.
I had COVID. So they're sticking with that story. But he said he's definitely staying in the race. And
Okay.
he's still a little sketchy saying that. But
I mean,
to the reporter's credit, he wasn't that light on him. He was like, so, but you got home 12 days ago. It's like, how sick were you? You know what I mean? Have you watched the debate? So I thought it was going to be like a softball interview, and the guy wasn't too terrible.
well, I think that that's good news for Trump and RFK supporters, no doubt. I think they would love to see Biden stay in the race.
I think we'd be better for RFK because Biden people aren't going to vote for Trump, but they might vote for RFK or they might not vote.
Yeah, but
And
I
I
don't.
don't see anybody who doesn't at least support Trump now suddenly being like, "Oh, Biden's out, so Trump's my best bet." You know what I
No, no,
mean?
no. Of course not. But I
Yeah.
think if they continue to run with what they have, I don't see Biden even being close. I think Trump crushes him. Again, this is just my opinion. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't see it being close. So I think if the Dems actually wanted to make it a legit race, the only option is to push Biden out. And I
Every
did
day.
hear stuff that like the Democrats were working on that. Specifically, I heard Barack was involved. I don't know, but there was
I
speculation
well,
that Barack was trying to convince Joe to drop out.
I saw some of that, but I also, everybody can. It's just like everybody tried to convince him to drop out, except for like his family.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
You know,
especially his wife, who's how is this not like this is like spousal abuse, in my
it's
opinion,
older abuse.
elder abuse. Well, yeah, it happens to be her husband.
My fingers hurt.
Oh, well, now your back's gonna hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. Anybody else's fingers hurt?
All right. So what else did I have? I got one thing I want to talk about that's going to take a minute, but oh no, I guess the only other thing was what we're going to talk about at a different time.
Oh,
I watched this interview before, just about 2 hours ago, before we were getting ready to do this. And have you ever heard of a guy named Jim Rickards?
Jim Rickards.
Jim Rickards. He's on like shows sometimes, like a news show or a podcast or something. But it was an investor podcast, So it was more about the market than it was about like economics. But the guy is an economic dude. He's also he's a gold guy. And I was trying to figure him out because when I first got into the interview, right, they were talking politics in the beginning, and he gave his opinion on Joe. But he started to get into that there's a civil war in the Democrat Party. You know what I mean? The Biden people, the non-Biden people, and he calls the far left, also known as the everyday left, are people like AOC, Hakeem Jeffries, and like the progressives. You know what I mean? I guess the old guard he didn't really get into the other Democrats, but besides that, they're in a civil war. So I guess the Biden people versus the left. You
The
know what I
rest
mean?
of them, right? Well,
'Cause they're not,
that's
like
the
he said,
GOP
well,
too. You have your Trump supporters and then your non-Trump supporters.
hold on, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Go
Stay
ahead. Go
with.
ahead.
He also says there's like no left. There's no middle. But I don't know. I don't pay enough attention to who's in what camp of the Democrats. You know what I mean? It's all nonsense. And then this is when he gets weird. He starts talking about globalists, right? And then he says that Mises and Hayek were globalists. And it doesn't make any sense. So I'm listening to him, and he like literally says, he's like, they don't care about human rights. And I'm like, the whole basis of praxeology and the study of human action is based on human rights. So what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? So I think he's got that way off on who globalists are. He calls them neoliberals, the neoliberalism. But he says like the old neoliberals in the Republican Party are gone. That's like he says like George Bush was neoliberal, Reagan, like those guys. I'm like, no, not at all. They were not anywhere close to like what Mises and Hayek had to. Like he's confusing free trade and like globalization. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Well,
globalist to me is somebody or a group of people who basically want to control the entire world and, run the show essentially
yeah,
with whatever their agenda happens to be.
he's mixing up because it confused me. So I started looking into the guy, right? And then I obviously checked if he's ever written or been on anything that's in the Mises Institute. And it turns out that he's been on with Bob Murphy before. And the little thing I got into, because they were talking about gold, because the guy's a gold dude. So they really need to get into where they disagree, like with theory and, the basics. But basically, he just doesn't understand globalization and trade. But it's not a big deal. I'm not trying to kill the guy's credibility. He's smart as shit because he calls himself an Austrian. He's like, I'm kind of Austrian.
Maybe
anyway,
maybe his definition of globalism or globalist is just different from
Well, yeah, he screws it up with free trade and globalization control trade, I guess, because free markets and free trade are not the same because there would be coercion. There's no coercion in free trade. So, and you can't have that without individual rights in the first place. You know what I mean?
Maybe he just got confused. Maybe we'll just give him the benefit of the
No,
doubt.
because it doesn't matter. He sticks
Right.
to it. It's his argument. He's not like agree with everybody. You know what I mean? Not every libertarian is the same libertarian, and not every Austrian agrees with the same Austrian principles, I guess.
Sure.
Because he says he's kind of Austrian. You know what I mean? We'll get to it. So there's a civil war in the left, and there's a civil war in the right. And on the right, it's the globalists versus the nationalists, and the nationalists are winning. And but he uses like Nikki Haley and Mitch McConnell as like part of their group. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. He uses Nikki Haley, Mitch McConnell, and the Bushes as the globalists, and the nationalists are like the Trump people, MAGA.
It sounds accurate to me.
And he
I
says
would agree with him there.
The nationalist movement is replacing the old guard, which he calls the neoliberals, but that's incorrect because if anything, they went off the Chicago method of economics. Because Art Laffer was helped with the Reagan tax cuts. Doesn't matter. He thinks Trump's going to win. He's like Trump knows that he had a wasted opportunity last time. He didn't understand what the swamp was. He couldn't see the swamp. And he starts talking about, they bring up that, have you heard of Project 2025 yet?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't really looked into it besides what the left says and the propaganda coming out.
Yeah.
They get into it. And he says, and it goes along with Trump not clearing out the swamp. So there's something called the Plum Book. Plum, like the fruit, and it's the color too. I don't know. And the Plum Book is every 4 years, either the House or the Senate releases the book, and it's the 9,000 appointed positions that the president can do and who they are every 4 years. So imagine the 9,000 people. You know what I mean? That's all the shit you could possibly change out. That's the swamp. You know what I mean? All of that, the spending. 9,000 people. Like, no president. You could spend your 4 years just trying to appoint people and not get it done and not do anything else as president.
Right, because they don't have enough time. Right.
So I thought the number 9,000 was interesting. He made a comment about Biden at a fundraiser, and I don't know if like fundraisers are. It's not that someone comes there and gives a speech. You know, you're trying to make money. You're trying to raise money. So, like, Obama was great at this. Like, you go out, you schmooze the crowd. You know, you get up, you talk off the cuff, you make a couple of jokes, and you say, hey, Trump sucks, we need some money. You know, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then you spend cocktail hours shaking everybody's hand and taking pictures and shit, right?
Right.
Biden comes out, reads from a teleprompter, like, can't do it properly, and then, like, stutters and fucking then goes, like, I'm leaving, and just disappears because he has to go to bed.
Right. Or do whatever he's going to do.
The White House released a statement that after 8 o'clock, he doesn't take calls from governors anymore. Like, he's got a bedtime or something. Like, after 8 o'clock, you know, he's shut down for business.
Oh, so I'm trying to find Project 2025 while I'm talking to you. Go ahead.
What are you looking for?
Project 2025?
It's hard. I haven't found anybody that I at least sort of trust to even dig into it yet.
Yeah, of course, like the whole first page is all filled with the Democrats' interpretation of it, which I already know is not accurate because I actually did see like the legit document or whatever it was. So yeah,
I wonder if I saved it.
I don't want to link any of this stuff because this is all misinformation. But if I find a legit,
we're not doctors and we know nothing about finance.
No, we don't. Do you have to be a doctor to know about finance?
Not a doctor. Not a doctor.
Anyway.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
Anyway, yeah, it's go ahead.
The Plum Book is published by the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee and the State Senate on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, alternately after each presidential election. The Plum Book is used to identify presidential appointed and other positions within the federal government. So basically, he said Biden is too fucking old and he really doesn't have it, but they can't replace him. So his group, I guess, when Biden's gone, the other group would assume take over. But he thinks Trump's going to win in a landslide. And then he gets into Trump, and they end up getting into like gold and bricks and shit like that. So do you know what BRICS is, right?
Yeah, you talking about the currency?
Well, yeah, the organization. There's no currency yet,
Right.
but they're working on it. And who are the couple of countries that are about to join?
It's China, Russia, Brazil.
That's the original. They're about to have 20.
Yeah, there's more joiners. Yeah.
Turkey's going to get in. Saudi Arabia is going to get in. Malaysia. All right. So he starts talking about like the U.S. dollar, right? And what the dollar is, like how fiat money still kind of runs behind the confidence that the American government is behind the dollar. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's like, the confidence is a mental state. It's how people behave. So if people start to lose confidence in the dollar, it's going to go to shit. And there's no confidence right now in the dollar. So this is where he loses the Austrian shit, because he recommends like, how do you save the dollar? Because being the world's reserve is very good for us. Unfortunately, we took advantage of it, and now we've incentivized other countries to find alternate ways of conducting business because we control the money and we use it as leverage. And we used it so much on Russia that other countries are like, whoa, if I piss you off, are you going to do the same thing to us? Because there's money frozen in an account it's called SWIFT, is the American banking. We talked about it before, right? You remember the world banking system, how they pay each other and shit?
Yeah.
Okay, so the program is called SWIFT, right? Whatever the acronym is, it's SWIFT. And it allows the US to freeze dollars. So they have this account there's a Russian account with billions of dollars in it, and they froze the account, but it's not like money, it's bonds or bills or something. So the Americans are stealing like $37 billion in interest payments on these loans that they have frozen in the account. And then so like Congress, they're trying to argue that it's not stealing because they only own the bonds, not the interest, which is ridiculous, because if you own the bonds, you own the interest too. But anyway, he wants to he said this is the third, they're through the third generation of schooling where they don't teach kids about gold or money. That's how long it's been going on that they haven't been. He said he went to he was in school right around the 71 with Nixon and the dollar and the gold reserve, and he said that his group was like the last ones to learn about it at whatever level. You know what I mean? Like below college level.
I don't want to cut you off, so I'm going to let you finish, but I do have a question.
All
Maybe
right.
several
And then
questions.
he said that like even professors at Harvard aren't teaching you about gold. They just don't talk about gold. You can learn about Keynesians and Austrians and shit. They don't tell you about gold. What were we gonna say?
Well, first, my first question is, why aren't they teaching you about gold? Well, I mean, that seems like it should be something that's pretty important. You know, if you're talking about the system and how it came to be, and that was backed on gold,
Right, but
kind of want to talk about that, no?
well, again, they're not going to tell you what you need to take them over.
Right. So, so what do you think? What is going to be the ramifications once BRICS officially launches?
Okay, yeah, he gets into that. Think about it like this, right? With only a few countries, And so think about their new BRICS bill almost as like competition to the dollar. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
so if 20 countries inside BRICS decide to use their own method, they'll still use dollars to do dollar shit. But if Russia wants to buy a plane from Brazil, they'll pay with BRIC dollars. You know what I mean?
Right. Which wouldn't be our currency, obviously, not the US
It's just
dollar.
a currency, but they were going to back it by gold. That's the plan. So then he starts talking about what it would take to put confidence back in America. Like if this happens and people start to lose confidence in the dollar, how do you put American faith back in the dollar, right? So he says that if it goes back on sort of a gold standard, but he's also aligned with fractional reserve lending. But instead of 100% fractional reserve lending or 90%, they only want to do 40. Even though the Austrians would say 100, like you can't. I want 100% reserves in the bank, not 40% reserves in the bank, whatever.
Right.
But, so he does them. He comes up with the math, right? He goes through. He takes the M1 number, which is the supply of money in the system.
And fractional reserve is the amount of money that the bank needs to have on hand at any given time, right? Which doesn't have to be the total amount, right?
Like so, like if you give them $100, they only need to have $10
$10 in the bank, right? Okay.
And they can lend out the other $90 like 10 times.
Got it.
So the M1, there's M1, M2 soft. It doesn't matter. It's basically a count of dollars in the system. So he takes the M1. America has got about 8,000 tons of gold. Multiply, divide, yada yada yada. He said to start a new system based on a 40% reserve off America's 8,000 tons of gold. The price of an ounce of gold right now would be $27,000.
Oh my God. So again, where do you see this going? So BRICS launches. Does this affect the US dollar? And if so, how?
It'll I think it'll almost kind of even the playing field. America will have to, well, I guess everyone will have to negotiate a little bit different based on what you're buying, how you're moving, how you're trading. You know what I mean? Like America can't bend you over if you can go use BRICS.
Right. So like I think recently, right, Saudi came off the go ahead.
Well, they got the petrodollar. They stopped selling it and basing it off of dollars.
They're not going to take American dollars for oil anymore, right?
Well, they're going to take more than just dollars.
Oh, so they're still going to accept the U.S. dollar. They're just going to take BRICS and all this other stuff as well.
They'll take Bitcoin. I don't know, whatever they feel. I don't know what they're going to take.
Okay.
But it's
so I guess my question is, so like prior to that, Saudi Arabia was only taking the U.S. dollar for oil purposes.
You had to pay in dollars.
You had to pay in dollars, and now you're going to be able to pay in whatever.
Hypothetically, they haven't. As far as I know, they haven't said anything. But I mean, BRICS is not that different than the euro. It's 20 countries using their own currency. You know what I mean? But they still take pounds and dollars still count over there. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they euros.
Okay.
So think of it kind of like that. Like it's going to take a lot of time. It's not going to happen like tomorrow that we lose the being the world's reserve. It's not like the end. It's not the end of days right now just because BRICS is bringing more competition into the market. Just think about it like that.
Okay.
I mean, it's good for markets and shit, not necessarily good for Americans abusing their power.
Would it be a good idea for Americans to invest in BRICS, even though we can't necessarily spend it here?
I don't know about that kind of shit. Like, I don't know, like if BRICS. I mean, I don't even know what they're going to compare it to. Like, what the value would be, the exchange rate. You know what I mean?
I saw the other day they said it's $55 for one BRIC coin, whatever that means.
Right, hypothetically, because it's not out yet.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I don't know a lot about this, obviously.
It's all pretend math until it hits the market.
But I guess my concern, and I don't even know if it's a concern, but it is a concern. So my whole thing is, right, the U.S. dollar is devalued, right? And it's just seemingly getting worse. They just keep printing money. Like you had mentioned numerous times that, our dollar has decreased 96% of its original worth, right? So now, with countries not only being aware of that, but now you have this brand new currency that is, like you say, going to be backed by gold, right?
Well,
Unlike,
I mean, they haven't done it yet. They still need to get the gold together and work out a system. It's going to be like their version of Bretton Woods, which was what we did after World War II and made the currency system work in trade.
okay.
It's just going to allow them to have a different option to pay for other people in the same club.
I guess where I'm trying to go with this, and again, I'm not a finance guy. I don't know shit about
Yeah, I
finances.
don't know about the values and shit like that.
Yeah, I don't know shit about shit. but I guess my point is that if this, or my concern is that if this happens, and BRICS, well, when it happens, because it seems like it's inevitable at this point. When BRICS happens, maybe not right away, like you said, but over the course of time, I don't see how this is going to be good for the U.S. dollar at all.
Well, in the words of Hemingway, it'll happen very slowly and then all at once.
Right. So I guess where I'm saying is that, hey, if there's any investors out there, or you got extra money in the bank, maybe it might not be a bad idea for you to invest in BRICS.
Not investor. Not advice. This is not advice.
We're suggesting, right? I'm not. Again, I just told you I don't know shit about shit. I'm just basically saying that, hey, maybe it might not be a bad idea to do that. But again, I don't know what I'm talking about.
It could be the dumbest move in the world.
Could be.
I have no idea that when BRICS hits, when 20 countries start accepting a different currency for trading goods amongst themselves, what that will do to the exchange rate of any currency. You know what I mean? Maybe it'll fucking kill the rupee. You know what I mean? I have no idea. Because countries still have their own money.
Oh,
you know what I
sure.
mean?
Sure. Absolutely. But, I think, like you mentioned earlier, because the U.S. dollar is so big and because it has been devalued so much over time, now you have this brand new currency coming out on the market. And again, I don't know shit, but we have this brand new currency coming, and there's a lot of powerful, affluent countries. Again, Brazil, China, Russia,
Think about it.
3 of the most powerful countries in the world signing on to it. I just don't see how this is going to be good for the U.S. dollar.
No, I mean, it's not good for, of course not. If you're the dominant position and something else is coming in that people are going to use, it's not good for you. It's not good for us technically overall, but it's not going to throw us into chaos on the first day that BRICS opens. I don't think.
Right.
But think the countries, the nations in BRICS right now, if Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Malaysia get in, that is more than half the world's population and about half the world's land.
I think India, too, is also in BRICS.
Going to use an alternate system of payment.
Yeah. So, again, I believe India as well, right? So India, China, Russia, like, again, right there, and Brazil, 4 of the world's biggest economies, right? What?
The 5. South Africa is the S.
Yeah, but I was just, just in terms of, anyway, I don't know what South Africa's GDP is or any of that stuff. But
and they're half the world's GDP also.
That's my point. So again, I don't know shit about shit when it comes to finances, but I feel like this should be concerning to us. Not that we should try to stop it. We can't stop it. But maybe we should be looking at our own currency system and seeing what we can do to repair it.
That's what I was talking about with America's 8,000 tons of gold. His suggestion was, hypothetically, to put confidence back in the dollar, that people want to keep using it because it's no longer linked to the gold standard, is to kind of link it back to a gold standard, and at the same time still do fractional reserve lending at 40%. So it, compared to what we have right now, it's a great deal, but the transfer of the system and all of a sudden making gold worth like $27,000, I don't know how that's going to work. You know what I mean? I don't know what just happens if gold's worth $27,000. What happens to other prices? and how that would affect. I've never even really looked into something like that before.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking at our dollar just going down like this, and then I'm seeing this new currency, or rather hearing about this new currency coming up with some of the most powerful countries in the world. And I got to imagine within a certain period of time that they're going to not only overtake the US dollar, but the US dollar is going to be in shambles. I don't know.
It's going to work like this. Like, either you're going to start in one or you're starting the other, right? And there's going to be competition amongst all the other countries on who wants to use what system. And what I can tell is that you're not really going to be able to manhandle other countries' finances like the United States does. Like, the U.S. incentivized other countries to make up their own system because we abused the shit out of it. It's our own fault.
Which brings up another good point. So
America is the biggest danger to their own dollar.
So we've been abusing these countries, so to speak, right? Over the years, overplaying our hand, so to speak, with our. So again, when we come to the negotiating table, now BRICS is there, right? BRICS is like, hey, you should roll with us, and then you have the United States saying, hey, you should roll with us. If I'm the guy sitting in that chair deciding, which one I'm going to go with, I'm not going to forget what the U.S. dollar and how abusive that they have been to me over the years. So I might be more likely to be like, hey, you know what, United States, peace. I'm going to roll with these guys.
Did no one come to save me just because they missed me? I'm standing over there with him.
It depends on what your country needs. You know what I mean? Like, if you need food from Ukraine because you're Egypt and you don't produce enough food to feed your population, and you rely on Ukraine, you're going to work with fucking Ukraine.
That's true. That's a good point.
Or you're going to find another way to feed yourself.
That's a good point. And maybe a lot of the trade agreements and a lot of the trade is already
new trade agreements will be met, new trade routes will be formed, and the world adjusts. The world is adjusting because we are no longer the world's super hyper power. It's a multi-power world. You know what I mean? No one can really manhandle somebody physically as an army, besides nukes, outside of their sphere of influence. So we can bomb the shit out of China, but we're not invading China. We're not going to take over China. China's not going to take over the United States.
I would argue ultimately that it's a good thing, to not have one superpower. We've always relished in that over here in the United States because it was us. But I'm sure if it was a different country that had been the superpower for all this time, we wouldn't have been okay with that.
Yeah, we'd be making movies about them being bad.
Yeah, how corrupt they are and all that stuff. Yeah, so I think it's probably better, that we do have a plus you can kind of keep each other in check. If we're in the lunchroom, and there's one bully, there's nobody to check that bully. So he does whatever he wants. He steals all of our lunch money, pushes us all around. There's nothing we can really do. If there's four bullies, well, you might actually have something going on there. Because, okay, this dude's picking on me, but I'm going to go to bully number 2 and see if maybe I can befriend this dude and get him to defend me from, Again, maybe it's a shit analogy, but...
No, it's the same thing. You're going to do what's in the best interest for... I want to say for your people, but it's going to be for each individual state. You know what I mean?
It should be in the best interest of your people, but yeah.
Right. I mean, when you get down to like economics and profit and loss and all that shit, everyone forgets about like the consumer. You know what I mean? Without the consumer buying shit, you don't have products and services to give people.
True.
So I think you always trying to satisfy the customer, not satisfy, whoever else.
That's true. That's a good point.
You always get left in the dark,
Yeah, that's a good point.
No one forgets who's got to buy the things. Like, oh, we're raising this and we're taxing that. We're doing this, we're doing that. But all you're doing is making it more expensive for me to buy it at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see how all of this plays out.
Again, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of it depends on the election, obviously, who gets in there. You see that France voted a different way. Now they're all rioting over in France.
Did you see France is on fire? Did you see
in
it?
England, no, I haven't seen it today. I just saw it last night.
Oh goodness! Here, let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
And England's wilding out too.
England, yeah, the what's his name? Keir something.
I don't know.
Keir.
It's the other party.
Keir Starmer. That's the progressive guy who just won in the UK or in England rather. Excuse me.
Okay.
Apparently he's like an establishment dude. I don't know. I never even heard of the dude until just a couple weeks ago.
He's progressive, and aren't they like kind of really anti-immigration over there right now? Like the
people are, but this is again one of the Joe Biden figures that's not listening to the people. Apparently that's what this dude is. Keir Starmer. I don't know. I don't know much about British politics, but I do watch like Russell Brand. I watch a couple other Brits, and they don't say good things about this guy. And
if they just had the election, did that guy win or the other guy win?
No, Keir Starmer won. The other dude is Nigel Faraday, I believe his name is, or Nigel something.
He doesn't like this dude. How did he win?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't really know much about English politics. Like I didn't even know these guys' names until like 2 weeks ago.
In France, the anti-immigration party won, and that's why everybody's going fucking nuts.
Yeah, Macron lost in the first round, which is probably a good thing for France, because he wasn't doing anything.
Doesn't the new party have like 400 seats? They had like 200 4 years ago, and like 100 4 years before that.
I don't know. Maybe. Oh, I know what I was going to pull up.
I was trying to catch up. I saw like a 5-minute what's going on in the world thing that I was half paying attention to before, but I haven't really taken the time to dig into the European elections.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really know much about it. Here's Sky News Australia. I don't know if you watch them. I'll just play a little bit of it.
They're pretty solidly conservative. Like
they are, and I don't agree with everything they say, but as far as like a lot of their factual news goes, they're pretty good. But yeah, no, there's some other talking points. Are like, yo, come on, really?
Yeah, they're a little too
some petty ass shit. But all right, but I do watch them for information, and like I said, the information is usually good.
I mean, it comes up.
So yeah, this is going on in France.
Let's see it.
Play a little bit for you. It's long.
It's extraordinary that we routinely hear Marine Le Pen's party described as fascists, and yet who are acting like the fascists? It's an element of the radical far left.
France erupts in chaos. Protesters flooding the streets, threatening the very foundations of democracy. The nation reeling from unprecedented mayhem and braces for more unrest. So what sparked this alarming descent into turmoil?
Looks like they're
Sky News Digital Originals presents France erupts.
No, that's probably enough.
So I guess what happened is Le Pen, she I guess is kind of like a Donald Trump like figure. I don't know. I don't know if there's
she's anti-immigration, so I really need to know. Very staunchly no immigration.
Yeah, again, like we talked about in the last episode, and I've said it numerous times, this issue is not just a U.S. issue, it's going on in many countries.
Yeah.
And most of the other countries, the people are just like we are. They don't want it. It's like, again, I don't know what the numbers are, but it was like 70-something% of Americans oppose the immigration and want to deport the people. Unless you're watching the corporate media polls, in which case it's probably the complete opposite.
One number is that like 70% of the people are against immigration policy, but I don't know if 70% of the people are like deport everybody.
That's true. 70% of the people are not happy about the current immigration status.
Right.
So yeah, just to clarify that. And apparently the same thing going on in France, and but it's more than just that.
I feel like it's crazier in France. Like I feel like their immigration problem is much more of a problem than it is here.
It is. Plus, French people, man, they don't fuck around, bro. I mean, France has up until very recent history, France has quite a fucking history of overthrowing tyrannical governments and stringing people up in the streets that mistreat the public.
Africa.
What's that?
France was terrible in Africa.
What do you mean?
All types of foul shit.
Oh, no doubt France is doing fucked up shit, but I mean, like, as far as, like, France treats their people, you know, and historically, when France has mistreated their people, whoever was doing the mistreating got strung up in the fucking town square. Like,
got the guillotines.
Palace of Versailles and shit, you know? See what, I forget the name of the family that was doing all that, but yo, those people.
Marie Antoinette got her head chopped off.
Yeah.
Hanging, firing squad, or a new invention, the guillotine.
Guillotine? Sounds French. I love the French. Did you know that they invented mayonnaise?
Oh, they're bad. Ah, choose me mine.
And man, I mean, I went there, and I think my stepdad, he coined it the best. It was so, he said something like, this is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen and the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, like at the same time. He didn't say quite that, but it was something along those lines, and he was right. When you see this palace, Billy, it's breathtaking. Like the gold, the artistry, the statues, all of this elaborate, amazing, expensive stuff that's up in this palace while the people were starving. And, you know, the French people obviously know the French Revolution. They had enough of it, and they pulled these people right out of their fancy palaces. And, like you said, Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, but then the two parties started fighting each other. They were like, they cut off so many heads. They started like beefing with each other really bad, and then Napoleon came and stopped. Well, like happened to rise, but it wasn't like it was a clean break, and all of a sudden they were happy over in France. Like the two parties, like the Jocos or the Jockeys or something with a J, I think was the one group, and they were battling it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, you know, revolution. Sometimes it doesn't work out cleanly. I would say most of the time it probably doesn't work out cleanly.
Well, yeah, because I mean, again, you can only the state is created two ways. It's either conquered or a revolution.
Right.
So the revolution happened, overturned the old state. They couldn't figure out a new state until Napoleon came in and cleared everything up for everyone. You know what I mean?
Sure, and it's possible even during a revolution that could have been done for good purposes, you know, after the revolution is complete or after the regime is overthrown. Sure, absolutely. There could be corruption immediately seeping into the system and could distort everything that, you know, transpires after that. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know much about French history. I just know that France is historically pretty infamous for overthrowing corrupt regimes.
Well, you mean they've been around for a minute?
They have. They're a lot older than we are, that's for sure. Their history book's a lot bigger.
Yeah. Depends on how far you want to go back.
They were called, what, Francia, I believe? Like back in Viking times? Wasn't that the name of the country? Like Francia?
Yeah, the Franks.
Yeah. I don't know.
Even then, they weren't that until all the tribes like joined. It was also always a bunch of little, even like Germania was kind of the same way.
Germania, yeah. Was Germany prior. And maybe some people still call it Germania. I don't know.
They would like team up and go sack Rome, but then like when they went home, they kind of like went back to their business. Yeah. It wasn't really until like the War of Russian unification, like Austrian unification or whatever, that Germany even became like a thing,
like a world power, or on the way to being a world power.
Well, before they were called Germans, before there was the state of Germany, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it was Germania prior to that. I mean, you can see that like even in old movies.
A huge group of scattered tribes and groups or whatever, and then as nation states started forming and wars changed up all the land, eventually they started unifying, and then like Bismarck and like the first, right? Yeah. The Battles of German Unification, I think it was called. It would have been Austrian Unification. Either way, it was Germany, Austria, Prussia, shit like that.
Yeah, so going back to this France, these riots, right? So apparently, I don't know if you heard the first part of that, but he basically mentions that, so apparently these people that are rioting are like the far left people, which is kind of similar to what we have over here.
But isn't it the far left and like the immigrants who aren't happy? Or
that would make sense. I don't know if the immigrants are there. I just heard them say far left in what I was watching.
Like, if you are a refugee in a country, no matter how you got there,
yeah, I know where you're going with it. Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're like, "We're gonna kick your ass out of here." I'm like, we're like, whoa, hold on here.
Sure. And you know, it's more than just that. If I live in a poor country and my quality of life is not good, and you or the president of your nation, of Billy Goat Nation, has just invited me there, and you're beefing with another political party, who am I going to back? Well, of course I'm going to back you. You're the one that helped me out and got me out of my unfortunate predicament. So yeah, there could be some that could be a reason maybe why they're importing so many of these immigrants.
It was the last time.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is by design. It's
war. It's war. It's culture, or it's votes.
Yeah.
Because if hypothetically, if we get into a war in Russia and the Americans are all like, our people are all like, fuck that, we're not going to go over there and fight. And then you're like, oh, you're an immigrant, go serve 2 years, go serve a couple of tours, you come home, here's your green card.
Yeah, and that's a win-win, obviously, for an immigrant. Why would you not say yes to that? And then they probably tack on other stuff like, oh, free education, we'll pay you X amount of dollars a month while you're deployed. Free health care for your fam,
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
Whatever the incentives might be.
So
and they'll offer it until someone takes it. Then
right. Yeah, it's a fair point. So yeah, you're right. I'm sure there's at least some immigrants that are involved in this. Well, along with the far left people that are upset about the election results. I guess maybe they wanted to go to war because Macron was ready to go to war in Ukraine and Russia, and these people are upset that he's no longer in power. So maybe they wanted that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I also, maybe this is just the skeptical part of me, but I also probably think there's some kind of feds on the ground as well, maybe ringleading this from behind the scenes.
What do you mean?
So like a lot of the recent how do I word this? So some of the recent events that have happened, right?
All right.
Like in our country, right?
Okay. Name a couple.
January, for one.
All right, January 6th.
There's been some recent parades, right? Like in Washington, D.C., like with groups of people, right? They always paint them as far right as extremists, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just funny to me how none of these people are ever showing their face. They're always masked up, thanks to the pandemic. Everybody, it's totally normal now for everybody to wear masks, right?
Are you talking about Patriot Front?
Maybe. So, I don't really recall the names. I try not to associate with groups or any of that stuff, but
knowing their name is not associating with them.
Fair. Unfortunately, I don't remember any of their names.
Patriot Front are the guys who walk around in tan pants and the blue shirts and the white gator neck.
Yeah, it could be those guys. It could be anytime there's a group of people that's out protesting and they're covering their face, I'm skeptical immediately. And then maybe not all of them, but in many cases, a lot of them. Again, if you're out protesting, which is your right to do so, why are you all masked up?
Because maybe you want to break some shit.
It tells me you don't. Well, but a lot of the times that doesn't happen.
Maybe you don't want the state to know who you are.
That's fair. It's a good point. But again, you have every right to protest, at least in this country.
Okay.
What's the big deal? I don't know. I'm just saying when I see shit like this go down, I automatically assume that there are some feds, shit like this, like riots, for example, right?
Oh, you think that? So, I get it.
So let me give you a weird theory, right? And I'm not passing this along as fact. It's just a wild theory, right? Now, if I want to cause chaos, right, among the other party, I'm going to use January as an example, right?
Okay.
Me and you are feds. We work for whatever, FBI, CIA, whoever, it doesn't matter, right? Homeland Security, whomever. And our boss is like, look, we need to disrupt. They don't even give you information. They're just like, look, we need you to cause a little chaos. You're going to show up at this event or whatever.
I agree. That all happened. The FBI and everyone, they were all entrenched. They have so many undercover agents in there and so many assets. They refused to even talk about it in court.
That's my point.
Okay.
So
yeah.
if I want to cause chaos, right, which is semi what happened in January,
Okay.
right?
You get to the point. You're killing me.
If I want to cause chaos, all that has to happen is all I have to do is throw one Molotov cocktail or, do one stupid thing like that, right? That's it. Because other people are going to see that and they're going to be like, holy shit, it's on, and they're going to flip the fuck out.
That's how it breaks out. But I mean, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I've been down there for some of that shit before. I've been in D.C. when Trump won the first time on his inauguration day. They wilded out. Nothing like compared to a couple years later. But they were down there breaking up windows and setting shit on fire and fighting the cops and throwing rocks through cop cars and shit.
Right.
Like that crowd mentality, that shit gets all fucking crazy.
Right. And that's the whole thing, like a bar fight, like for a bar fight to break out.
I hear you.
Just one dude has to get punched. He gets bumped into somebody else. They punch, and then boom, it's on.
I mean, Ray Epps, right? Remember Ray Epps?
The name sounds familiar.
We have to go in the Capitol. We have to go in the Capitol. And they're like, Fed.
Oh, that dude. Yeah, he's a Fed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's been other, anyway, I'm going to leave it there because we'll talk about that another time. I do want to bring up one point, though. I actually said this the other day to somebody that I really care about.
Okay.
So let's get this straight. So let's go back to January, right? So let's stick with the corporate media's narrative, right? So the MAGA people came and tried to
take over the country.
Right, take over. They wanted to overthrow the current regime, interrupt the voting process, all of this stuff. So the MAGA people want to take over and overthrow the regime and all of this other nonsense that they were spewing, right? Mm-hmm. The MAGA people, some of people that are notorious, infamous for having stupid amounts of firearms, per individual. Again, we're talking about the far-right extremists. They got rocket launchers and grenades and 8 million guns per person. So what you're telling me is the MAGA people showed up to overthrow the Capitol and they didn't bring their guns?
They were unarmed.
Right.
What? Make that make sense for me. If we want to overthrow the Capitol, we ain't going there with unarmed. What are you, a fucking idiot?
What's overthrowing the Capitol going to do?
Nothing. This is their narrative. That's what I'm trying to say. Their narrative, once you start, once you just think about it for a second, it crumbles. It doesn't make any sense.
My joke was if that was an insurrection, then me and the Girl Scout Troop 227 can go into the mayor's office right now and I can conquer them on Olive.
Right.
I mean, what the fuck here, dude?
The insurrectionists showed up with no weapons. Make that fucking make sense for me, please. Somebody text me and explain that shit to me because it doesn't make sense to me.
There's so much more. There's so much more.
Oh, there's a lot. I'm just, again, just from the surface level, just their narrative, it doesn't make sense.
It never makes sense.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know what else you got, unless you want to continue on with
that. Was my list.
That was your whole list?
It was just the Jim Rickards thing.
Okay.
Got all into it today.
That's cool. All of our episodes don't have to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 hours long.
Whatever.
Makes it easier for me to edit them.
Excuse me.
All right. I was trying to think if there was something else that I always I should start writing stuff down. Like I always think about things I want to talk about on the show, and then I get sidetracked. I don't write them down, and then we're on the show, and I'm like,
I started using the Notes app in my phone that came with it.
I should start doing that.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
All right, maybe we'll just cut it here.
Yeah, man. Fuck it. I got nothing else to talk about. Unless you want us going through Twitter and shit.
Nah, we can do that, but no, that's all right.
All right, man. Then later.
Peace, y'all. We'll be back.